So not only a hardened, ruthless terrorist, a grass as well.
Freddie Scappaticci, widely known to be the man codenamed Stakeknife. He was the ruthless IRA enforcer who for years worked secretly for the British state.
But he was also involved in the most serious and inexcusable criminality.
Listen up, before we get to grips with this video, then I'd like you to do me a massive favour. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, it's imperative that you do so. We need to build our numbers, we need to build our audience. It just means we can do more for you. Right, I'm getting on with it now. The name at the centre of this scandal is Stakeknife. Not a legend, not a mastermind, a violent enforcer who ran the IRA's internal torture unit. The new findings show he carried out brutal interrogations, beatings and murders while being handled as a British intelligence asset. It raises one question. How did our own system allow one of the IRA's most dangerous men to continue operating? Let's take a look at what's being said in the news, shall we?
Freddie Scappaticci, 2 years on from his death, remains one of the most notorious figures in the story of a 30-year conflict they euphemistically called the Troubles. Widely known to be the man codenamed Stakeknife, he was the ruthless IRA enforcer who for years worked secretly for the British state. A state still to this day refusing to formally name Scappaticci as Stakeknife, despite, as we heard again today, the litany of his crimes conducted under their watch.
So not only a hardened, ruthless terrorist, a grass as well.
Stakeknife was an important source of intelligence, but he was also involved in the most serious and inexcusable criminality whilst operating as an agent, including murders.
John Boucher led on the initial phase of this 9-year investigation before becoming the police chief in Northern Ireland.
Stakeknife's activity resulted in more lives being lost than were saved.
So with that in the balance, with that, people would have known it should have been nipped in the bud, shouldn't it? You know, Stakeknife should have walked years ago, shouldn't he? Do you know what I mean? He should have gone down the tubes with everybody else. It's almost reminiscent of the old comfort letters.
Even if that had not been the case, the morality and legality of agents doing such harm as torture and murder with the knowledge and protection of the state would be unacceptable today and should have been then.
A prominent figure within the Republican movement, inside the IRA, Scappaticci was a senior figure in their internal security unit, the unit which abducted, tortured and killed suspected informants.
Yeah, how ironic is that? Yeah, he was informing himself all the time. Do you know? Unbelievable. That's like the double whammy, double reverso, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? The old switcheroo.
His secret recruitment in the late 70s by a British Army unit, their base known as the Rat Hole. There were covert meetings with Stakeknife nearly every week. At times he was offered tens of thousands of pounds in lump sums. 3,500 intelligence reports came from Stakeknife alone. But too often a blind eye was turned to others in danger to protect him.
The Kenova investigation has demonstrated that murders that could and should have been prevented were allowed to take place, and those responsible were not brought to justice. Instead, they were left free to kill again.
Once outed in the press, and before he was relocated to England with a new identity, Scappaticci tried to deny that he was Stakeknife.
I'm telling you, I'm not guilty of any of these allegations.
The UK government still refuses to formally identify Stakeknife.
The behaviour described of the alleged agent and their role in the provisional IRA is deeply disturbing.
The Northern Ireland Secretary today cited ongoing court proceedings around the government's neither confirm nor deny policy on agents' identities.
The government's first duty is, of course, to protect national security and identifying agents' risks.
It seems to be a massive crossover of sort of like, what should be acceptable and what's not acceptable here. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I get it. You know, you've got to defend people who are working covertly, blah, 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 blah. But if they're doing it in such a way that it's compromising other people, then it's got to be put in check, hasn't it? It's got to be looked at properly. And actually, how much did we actually get from him that was worthwhile? And how much good did he actually do? Do you know what I mean? If you can describe any of his work as good.
Jeopardising this.
Yet John Boucher takes a very different view.
I believe the government's refusal to allow this is untenable and bordering on farce.
Boucher also weighed in on MI5, castigating its delayed disclosure of evidence for which MI5 today apologised. Evidence which now reveals MI5 involved at the very outset with Stakeknife, aware of his involvement in abductions and torture of suspected agents who were then murdered. Listening in today, Moira Todd, whose brother Eugene Simons was killed in 1981.
It's 45 years ago, almost to the day, since my brother was taken and tortured by Stakeknife.
I mean, these things were kangaroo courts as well, like, do you know what I mean? There was, I can imagine, you know, there was no judicial system there, do you know what I mean? They were literally plugging people out of their beds at night and weighing them in. Simple as.
He was murdered thereafter. The authorities had all the details and did nothing. And 45 years on, I'm sitting here really none the wiser. And all I'm hearing is about the truth being suppressed and the government avoiding accountability. And it's just totally frustrating.
Northern Ireland is still grappling with the vast wounds of its recent past, where a man as brutal as Scapitici, Stakeknife, could be fated in secret by two warring factions and die in the knowledge he was still being protected. And so ends a £40 million investigation, and it's
£40 million.
worth reminding ourselves that there is now little chance of justice for the families and victims in all of this. Scapitici is dead, so too it appears any possibility of prosecutions for those directly involved or for any of those who handled him. There was acknowledgement from the inquiry today about the role of the security services in Northern Ireland, but their assessment was utterly scathing of Stakeknife, the level of his criminality and what he was and how he was protected. It was really quite remarkable to hear a serving chief constable be so critical of the state's actions then and now. He said that they were continuing to suppress unnecessarily the truth when it came to the government's insistence that they couldn't formally confirm or deny Stakeknife's identity. I question whether the decision, said John Boucher, protects agents, or rather, does this actually protect the government and intelligence agencies from accountability for historical wrongdoing?
He's pretty well summed that up, and he has thought about it before he said it, isn't he? Senior geezer there, senior geezer.
The story of Freddie Scapitici is one which is full of deeply uncomfortable truths for the IRA and the British government and its many security agencies, even more so after today.
Andy, thanks very much.
Right, we've just seen what the press are saying. Here is our summary. The IRA's internal security unit was not some shadowy intelligence cell. It was a terror squad. They kidnapped people, they tortured them, they executed them and dumped their bodies as warning. Women, men, teenagers, anyone they suspected of speaking to the police or the army. This is reality. It's not romanticism, no excuses. Stakeknife was right there in the middle of it. A senior figure directing beatings, interrogations and murders. While British troops were patrolling streets trying to prevent violence, this man was inflicting it inside safe houses. Yet instead of stopping him, parts of the intelligence system protected him, flew him out when the police closed in, delayed evidence, put the value of an informant above the lives of the people he harmed. That's not clever intelligence work. That is a moral failure. The report makes it brutally clear. Some of the murders could have been prevented. Families who spent decades wondering what happened to their sons, daughters or fathers deserve justice. Instead, their killers were shielded. Troops on the ground did the hard work. They dealt with the bombs, they dealt with the shootings, they dealt with the hatred. They had to watch friends get injured or worse. Yet behind the scenes, someone decided that protecting a violent IRA enforcer was acceptable collateral. This is why the Stakeknife story matters today. It shows how far things went wrong when political fear and intelligence games were allowed to outrank human lives and basic decency. The IRA caused the violence. The IRA chose the murders. they are responsible for the brutality. The state should never have allowed one of their worst to continue killing unchecked. That's betrayal. The families deserve answers. The public deserves honesty. Those who served deserve the truth about what was happening behind their backs while they were risking everything on the streets. And if you want the live updates here and the conversations we can't discuss openly, join our membership for just 16 pence a day on Force TV Plus.